On this week's episode of the Two Pointers podcast, Josh and I are back here this Monday, and we are recording talking about the first official news segment. We coined it kind of last year. If you've been looking on our website, which we hope you have been, it's called Panic Button. And find out here in this episode who we hit the panic button on this early through 1 month in the NBA season. We also talk about Steph's big time achievement, historic passing Ray Allen for all time 3-pointers. We'll touch on some college basketball scores from week one and everyone's favorite and fun loving trivia next.
Welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trevor.
And after that kind of long intro into what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to go ahead and lean into, like Trevor said, panic button. We're going to talk about Steph Curry. We're going to brush over some college basketball scores. Trevor has a trivia question that he says is relatively easy for me and that he's not going to be mean, but we'll see when we get there. Well, let's just have some fun. Oh, that being said, how are you doing today, Trevor?
It's favorite day of the week. Had to whip out the throwback jersey here for the Hawks. I don't even know if Josh noticed this so far, but obviously I'll post it on Twitter tomorrow, or Wednesday when this episode goes out. I got my Spud Webb Hawks jersey. Fittingly enough, we're going to talk about college a little bit. One of my favorite college players of all time, as well as the unfortunate, so far, spoiler, we're going to be hitting the panic button on the Atlanta Hawks. And I just thought it was fitting. I had to make sure I came repping with the ATL gear. So where do we begin with this unfortunate start for the Atlanta Hawks at 5-9? This is no disrespect, to be completely clear to the listeners that weren't here last year, who may be here this year. We do see the increase, and we thank you for all the support. This panic button segment is not disrespectful in any way. However, if you turn out to be bad and we were right, so be it. We hit the panic button for a reason. Example of a couple teams we hit the panic button on last year. We hit the panic button on the Dallas Mavericks, who proceeded to be a top 6 seed twice, actually. Thank you for reminding me, Josh. Twice, and they proceeded to be a top 6 seed in the West. And then prior to Lloyd Pierce's firing, Josh and I hit the panic button on the ever so fitting Atlanta Hawks, who, if you've at least followed basketball slightly in the last 12 months, well, they almost made the finals last year with Nate McMillan. So I wanted to first, we have to say up front, we agreed on this team. So Josh, up front, I just wanted your thoughts on what you've seen from them so far before. I came with a couple of questions. I always like throwing questions at us and kind of seeing where these questions or how they age poorly, possibly here in the next couple of months. So what are your first thoughts up front on the Hawks?
I mean, the reason I would want to hit the panic button is they're really just not at all where we thought they would be. This was kind of a team that you and I both agreed on that would be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. They haven't looked close to that. It hasn't even looked like it's just, early struggles for a good team. They've looked not good. Based on what I can see so far, it's a case of, like last year, the Hawks couldn't play defense all that well. They still can't play defense. The issue is they're no longer scoring at the insane pace that they did last year to keep up with that. They're only averaging about 107 points a game, which in the NBA so far this season is kind of pedestrian. It's about along the middle. And for a Hawks team, that is definitely more on the subpar defensive end. If you're just being mediocre on the offensive side of the court, it's going to result in a 5-9 record through the first 14.
Yeah, so the defense part, I knew we would agree on. It's less about the fact that they can't defend. Clint Capella isn't doing it for me. And then I'm going to just bring this up because this was literally as of last night, but they lose DeAndre Hunter for 2 months. Now, I do want to address that first before I say anything about the offense, because I think that Hunter injury is actually going to be a silver lining for them. I think ultimately, I won't spoil my final take on the Hawks for the end of the panic button segment, but ultimately, him being out for 2 months is not a good thing for a wrist, but it's not season-ending wrist like we've seen before, where it affects shooting, it affects passing. It ultimately affects the fact that that's his dominant hand. But what people don't realize is obviously he was rehabbing a little bit of a knee injury, and he kind of came back into this season not fully ready, but he was ready enough as he started to get back into game shape. I think 2 months for him to just fully make sure that knee is right, ready and healthy. And that wrist is, it's going to be a surgery that 2 months, it probably ends up being in like a month and a half. I think it actually is going to be a silver lining, a good thing for 2 reasons: to get healthy fully for DeAndre Hunter and stay at the rate he was going to be on defensively. He was going to talk himself into defensive first team or second team at the way he was playing defense before that injury. But also the Cam Reddish piece. I think that's important, that they can kind of take this time to hopefully get the operate back on offensively, this track that they're on. You mentioned their bottom half. They are 20th in points per game, which this season is pedestrian at best. But I think Cam Reddish can be an X factor for them. I think he can be a difference maker that they've always kind of realized that he could be and they wanted him to be. And with Hunter's absence, he's going to have to step up, not necessarily on the defensive end, but they're going to need him to step up. And I think he's going to be integral in the fact that Hunter's gone. I'm excited to see how his play increases from here. Who's somebody I've always liked Cam. I always thought he was, maybe a little bit undersized for his position. Maybe he's a little oversized for if he played a little bit smaller, but I think he's a great scorer. I think he really can do it at a lot of places. I liked him and RJ both a lot coming out of their draft class when they played together. It was a lot of fun. I think he's a really important piece for this Hunter injury that hopefully he can be a guy that can turn them around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know fully on the Cam Reddish being undersized part because he kind of plays a shooting guard and he's 6'8", but outside of that, yeah, your Cam Reddish and your Kevin Huerter are going to have to step up in the absence of a DeAndre Hunter. Hunter hadn't had that great of a season, honestly, thus far. Really no one in Atlanta outside of Trae Young, John Collins, and Clint Capella. I will shout out Clint Capella because I think he has been very good so far this year. Outside of those 3 guys, the supporting cast in Atlanta has looked bad. They've been inefficient. They haven't consistently been hitting their shots. That's why they're 20th in the offense. And Trae Young is not the Superman scorer that we saw in the playoffs last year right now. So it's not like Atlanta is not having what Memphis is having right now, where their star point guard is just dragging them to win after win. Atlanta's not getting that at the moment. That'll probably come at some point for Trae Young. But if they want to really do something to actually be to where we thought they were going to be, they're going to have some help from the supporting cast.
Yeah, so I don't know how much of it is Clint Capella. I'm not necessarily dragging Clint Capella. I will say that they are 30th in steals per game. That's not on him. That's on the lack of aggressive guard play. They need to get in passing lanes and create deflections and create more opportunities for steals. Don't get me wrong. But they're 29th in blocks per game as well, with only 3.6 blocks. Yes, Capella's not. He's probably most of those blocks. I know he's in the top 10 in blocks per game right now. But they right now have the second worst defense in the NBA behind the Pelicans, or ahead of the Pelicans. That to me, yes, it's eye-opening because it's second worst behind the team who right now is they're probably another month and a half away from completely imploding, but that may be a panic button team that we should have hit like 3 months ago. But I can't understand why they're so bad defensively. Like they have some pieces, like they have Capella, they have Collins, right? But I still can't understand, like the guard play is, I think, what really does it for me. There's not a guard there other than Hunter. And he's really like, he's a bit of a combo, but there's just not anybody there that excites me on the defensive end. That's not a 4 or a 5. So I just don't know like who to blame. I don't know if it's a blame game at that point. I just think this team, as the way it's constructed offensively, is amazing. Normally, defensively, it scares me a lot. I will say the one thing that kept sticking out to me, I kept looking at these stats and I kept going, okay, what's got to give for them? And they're only 26, Josh, in 3 points attempted. So they're shooting poorly, yet they're only shooting 31 3-pointers a game, which seems like a lot. Yes, 10 years ago, that number was probably first in the league by a long shot. I don't know. I'm just assuming based on the trend of the last decade. But the Hawks in 2021 and 22 season are 31 threes a game, which is 26. So the fact that they're shooting this poorly on not that high of a volume, at least from deep for them, despite Trae having 42 the other night, I just think they're having a bad month, and ultimately they have to right the ship offensively if they even want a chance. Like defensively, it's just going to be a matter of can they do it or not. I don't know beyond that. Up front, though, my first question for you is I already mentioned Cam Reddish, but you mentioned Hunter when he comes back and Herter as well. Is there anybody else that you think could be somebody that could turn this team around here in the next couple of months, other than Trey, obviously, who's trying his best to will them to every win? He's trying his best. He really is.
No, it's going to have to be a group effort.
I think so, too.
From Reddish, Herter, and Bogdanovich. The reason the offense was so good in the playoffs last year is because those guys, especially at the time, Herter, Bogdanovich, and Gallinari, were just shooting the lights out on the outside. Teams couldn't just focus on Trae Young. They couldn't just stop him and then crash the glass to keep John Collins away because the Hawks could just pass around to the corners and these guys were going to drain threes. They've got to get back to being just really threatening from the outside, and they haven't been that so far.
My other question we already relatively addressed. One of my other questions is this team's biggest weakness defense or offense? Unless you have more specific of an answer, it's not. I promise this is not dragging the Hawks through the mud.
This team could get better at offense. I don't think this team will be getting better on defense.
That's where I was going with the question is what can get better first to get them back on track? And it's probably going to have to be offense, honestly. I hope that we look back on this in 3 months and the Hawks are, in the top 4 in the East and they ultimately are a top 15 defensive team. I think it'd be really fun to see. Problem is, I don't think that happens. So before I get to the third question, I think it's important to note this about the Hawks. Take everything you know about statistics about the Hawks this season. Take everything. If you knew no statistics that you looked up before that I mentioned, because there's a lot that I haven't even mentioned. Unless they come up, I don't think they're even worth noting as homework. If you guys want to go look up, just look up the Hawks and team stats on NBA.com. Through 5 and 9, obviously they played the Magic tonight. I haven't looked at that score. It's about halfway through the game. They probably are demolishing the Magic. But 5 and 9 record as of Sunday. I'm just going to read you their wins and losses about what you know this season. Tell me how glaring or eye-opening this might sound. Their only wins right now are against the Mavericks, the Pistons, the Pelicans, and the Wizards, and then the Bucks. They just beat the Bucks literally before this segment was recorded tonight. Sunday night, they beat the Bucks by 20 at home. So it's fun timing, don't get me wrong, but still, but prior to that, it was Mavericks, Pistons, Pelicans, Wizards. In the 9 side of the category of losses or losses, Josh, they have lost to the Cavaliers, the Wizards. So they split with the Wizards so far. The Sixers, the Nets, the Suns, the Warriors, and the Jazz twice. What is the biggest trend there?
Well, it was something I looked at before. They're losing to big time teams. They have a kind of a brutal schedule at the beginning.
Bingo.
But we were talking about this team being one of the best in the Eastern Conference.
Correct.
If you lose to every single one of those good teams, which they've come pretty close to doing, you're not one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and that's why it's concerning. We thought this team would be on equal footing with some of those teams, and they just clearly shown they're not.
Yeah. So despite all of that, I think they do ultimately right the ship in terms of a higher finish than, of course, right now they're 13th in the East. I also do think it's good to note that the East is very good this year. It's important to make that. The East is good, and they're going to have to really just get themselves back right and prove that they can be in that top contention. Last question to almost finalize the cherry on top for the Hawks is every year it's more prevalent in football. This isn't a football podcast, but people who've listened before know that we do like football. We play fantasy. We watch it. Still first place in the Fantasy Football League of Podcasters, by the way. And we see this victim team is what I call them. In the NFL, you might hear them as the Super Bowl hangover team. Unfortunately, I think, Josh, this might be the Super Bowl hangover team. If I'm overreacting since we're doing Panic Button now once a month, I guess the question is, are they the Super Bowl hangover team?
No, because it's Phoenix.
Oh, see this. I'm glad I had this question then, because this is good to know. We can do Phoenix
the problems
later.
In Phoenix reach much deeper at the moment.
Yeah, we can address Phoenix.
Which
next week.
That's a whole nother. I'm not going to launch into it because What's going on in Phoenix is a long conversation, but I think it's going to be Phoenix. They've turned around. They have a good record now. Things aren't going to, I just don't think these things are going to keep going with Phoenix. I think that their record is a lot better than they looked as a basketball team, but we'll see.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Despite Chris Paul being number one in the NBA in assists per game and steals per game right now, at the age of 36, I believe, 37. So wild to think. So no, ultimately we agree. I think this isn't the Super Bowl hangover team. I don't necessarily have an answer for you on who that is, unfortunately, though. I just don't think it's the Hawks. I think anything, if they finish, yes, they obviously were a top 3 team last year, but we have them as a top 3 or 4 team. But if they don't make the play in, like if they finish 6 or higher, or even 5 or higher, I don't consider them a Super Bowl hangover team. It's that overreaction of the play in or overreaction of the fact that they're basically having to fight to even get in it. At that point, yes, you would call them that, right? It's very Falcons post Patriots loss kind of deal, right? Where you just fall from graces. So anyway, the Hawks panic button. At some point, somehow in this segment, I will have activated an alarm prior or post us talking about the Hawks. Before we move into some other stuff, Josh, anything else about the Hawks or any other teams that we were considering? Maybe anything else that we were kind of brushing on here about the panic button?
Nothing.
Let's fast track right into another, not historic. I was going to say historic. I'll get to that, but let's just go right into another comparable team here. The Hawks have been compared to in terms of the play style to the Warriors. I was trying to come up with a corny transition. It didn't work. It's okay. Here we are, and we now 2 years in a row doing this podcast, Josh. We brought up the Steph Curry Warriors in the first, we'll say 10-ish games of last season. I don't remember exactly where it fell, but Steph had a 50-point game that looked way more impressive than this one, which is crazy to even think. Last year's was unbelievable. I remember vaguely, but nonetheless, when a player scores 50 and when it's Steph Curry, it's talked about. On top of the fact that this same week he passed Ray Allen in all-time three-pointers, and that's obviously regular season and playoff combined. And I feel like it hasn't been talked about. It's been less than 48 hours. Why has this not been talked about more? That's actually why I brought this up. It's not even. I texted Josh and I was like, "You realize what Steph did this week?" No. Yeah, me neither. Let me address this with you. So here we are Monday, and Josh, Steph breaking the all-time three-pointer record. Yes, it's not like LeBron passing Kareem on the all-time points list. I get it, but it's a big deal. Why is it not more of a big deal? I can't figure it out.
So, I mean, I would honestly even push back. Like, no, it's not the all-time points list, but this might be like the second most important category, like in all-time
right now, yeah,
records. Because I remember it being a big deal when Ray Allen passed Reggie Miller. I remember that happening, and I remember it being talked about, and it was a crowning achievement of Ray Allen's career. And like you said, I just didn't even know it had happened. I don't know if it's because everyone's gotten the sense of knowing it was inevitable. Like we all knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of math and time. But no one no one reacted. Stephen Curry passed Ray Allen. We're like, okay, just another day. Officially crowning Steph Curry as the greatest three-point shooter basketball has ever seen.
Now,
but we're going to talk about it. Props to Steph Curry because that's insane, and it deserves to be recognized.
Albeit, every stat I keep looking at says including playoffs, and he did it in 585 fewer games, so almost 600. And Ray Allen, by the way, who played for almost 20 years, played for 15 seasons, I believe it was, 15, 16 seasons. I'm going to, you know what? Shout out to our friends at Stat News. I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm going to pull up just regular season all-time three-pointers because I think that matters. I think that's probably what
the number of Steph is currently 74 short of Ray Allen in regular season.
That's it. That's why it's not a big deal because I think included if you tie them, because Ray Allen had a lot more playoff moments that I can remember in terms of big three-point shots, and maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I really maybe it's because they combined the two, so it's not technically the all-time, because a lot of people, a lot of NBA historians are going to be like, stats that we are counting towards the NBA history stats are only regular season and playoffs are separate. And I see that, right? I understand that for points, things like that. Like it's something that is tracked differently. I get it. So maybe in, say, a month when he does 77 in a month, that's doable, right? Hold on. Wait, let's just address that. That's doable, correct? He'll probably break that by Christmas. He'll have to, right?
Yeah, maybe not by Christmas, but like he's gonna beat it this year. Like he's gonna make, because he's averaging 5 threes a game right now, which is a ridiculous number, but that puts him on track to hit like another 200 or so threes this season.
So,
and he's only 74 short. So
he's only 74 short, and there's 40 days total calendar days, right? I don't know how many games there are between now and Christmas. I'm doing this example live. He would only need 1.85 threes a day, which obviously, so that's really, maybe he does it by Christmas. Maybe he does it on Christmas. Don't the Warriors have the primetime game 8:00 on Christmas?
Usually have it. It would take him at the rate he's going about 15 more games.
Wow. Okay. Hey, I don't know.
So it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's
fun fact. And looking at that scoring list, though, did you realize that the player that's in 4th place in the all-time regular season threes list is also active in the NBA?
Do I get half a point for getting this right?
No.
Then I have no idea.
It's James Harden is 4th.
Oh yeah, I knew he was high. I just didn't realize he was 4th though. Holy cow!
But I think is like now that we've seen threes like become a bigger thing, like it's just we're gonna see these modern guys just like crowd the list, because then Damian Lillard's 10th, LeBron is 11th, which
that I didn't know, which is
like wow,
all time gonna finish that way. That's crazy.
Kyle Lowry is in 17th place.
Woo. Nice.
Klay Thompson 20, Paul George 21, Wesley Matthews 24th.
Oh geez. Okay.
He's hit 1,729 threes in his career.
Man, maybe this list isn't as impressive as I thought. That's no disrespect to Wesley Matthews. That's the same Wesley Matthews, by the way, that didn't play for almost 2 years because of an injury. So that's, man, really? He's in the top 25. Okay. Anyway, can I tell you the other reason I brought it up?
Yeah.
I think Steph might become the unbreakable record for this record tier. What I mean
very
by
well
that
could,
is,
yeah.
I think that's I look at stats like in these. I want to see a stat that's either going to A, blow me away, or B, did it transcend something? There's a difference, right? Him being, I'm just going to throw out a number if it's even realistic. Him being 600 ahead of Ray Allen, that I think is completely possible.
That's very realistic. Yeah.
Him being 1,000 ahead of Ray Allen if he plays till he's like 37. I'm just throwing out a number. 600 is definitely doable.
Yeah.
600, right? 600 is a good number. Him being 600 threes ahead of the next guy, like that's to me, like that's the territory we're entering. We're entering this territory where he's playing. He's the MVP favorite right now. I'm just going to say it through this part of the podcast. He's the MVP favorite right now, in my opinion. And at this rate, he's going to hit 600 ahead of Ray Allen before he's retired. It's going to happen. And I think that's more impressive than him passing him.
I will say that if the season ended today, I think Steph definitely would win the MVP.
I think it'd be unanimous. If it ended right now, it's unanimous.
I think it would. If it should is a different question, but I think it would.
Right. It would not. It should not be unanimous. But I think right this moment, based on what happened this week, especially with the 50 we had, which I basically brushed right over, 50-point game, of course, against, fittingly enough, I love that we brought this up. He did it against Trae Young. I thought that was interesting. But no, it's impressive nonetheless. It's less about like, okay, we're just giving Steph this high praise. We got to admit, like, this is a generational player, and you and I have a podcast during his prime. Like, this is worth mentioning. Like, he is worth every bit of the praise that's deserved. We'll address the MVP thing. We don't touch MVP this early. We made that clear last year when we thought Luka was like the runaway favorite.
We predicted Trae Young at the beginning of this year, and that's not working out so well. So
he's been playing like it, but he's not finishing in any of these lists that people have because, well, they're 5 and 9.
It's kind of like he's not hitting what he did last year, and that's kind of the issue of like he's playing good, but it's another sense of like Trae is not hitting the heights of what he did last year. What's crazier to point out Stephen Curry, with as insane as his numbers are, is also not hitting what he did last year. Like Steph's numbers are down. He's averaging 4 less points, shooting a worse percentage, which is really just more of a testament to how ridiculous he was last season.
But the last unbelievable Steph stat that I'll leave you with, because I just think it's worth noting, right? By the way, the same Steph Curry, who's number one also in 3-point like per game attempts as well, 3-point like attempts, makes, the whole thing. Not that there's any more stats that we need on Steph Curry, but Steph is number one all time in career games with at least 9 3-pointers made. He has 36 of them. That's not the impressive part. He's 27 ahead of the next guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like when we pull up the triple-double seasons. And we're like, Russell Westbrook has 4 and Oscar Robertson has 1.
It's ridiculous. The next couple guys, for what it's worth, is James Harden with 9, Damian Lillard with 9, 2 guys that you mentioned on that list. Interesting, Colle has not been brought up at any point this podcast. Obviously, great 3-point shooter all time. Missing 2 years is going to hurt him historically there. But J.R. Smith with 5. Shout out to J.R. Smith. North Carolina A&T golfer J.R. Smith. And Kobe Bryant with 4. For what that's worth, that list is very, very all over the place. But it's crazy that Steph is 36. That was actually why I wanted to talk about him. That was like the one I saved for the end, because I literally saw this like last week and I was like, we have to mention this in some form, and they end up getting his own segment. So shout out to Steph. I'd vote for him if I had an MVP vote right now. So we're ready to touch on some college, Josh, before this awesome trivia question.
Yeah. I wanted to run through some of the big moments in college basketball for the week. I'm just going to kind of touch on some scores, and then I'm going to see what Trevor's thoughts are through the first week. Those big Hall of Fame Champions Classic games that started out, Kansas rocked their way to an easy win over Michigan State. Duke had a good-looking win. Keels and Bonchero looked good over Kentucky. It was about what Trevor and I predicted it would be, but things didn't really go that different. Kind of a shocker on opening night. The Akron Zips nearly upset the Ohio State Buckeyes, the number 17 team in the country. If it wasn't for a miracle buzzer beater from Ohio State getting the win over Akron, they would have been the first top 25 team to fall, instead of that being UVA, who took a loss to Navy. Then looking to the other end, we had a couple of top 5 matchups. The UCLA Bruins played the Villanova Wildcats in a game that went to overtime. Johnny Juzang had 25 points in really a thriller of a victory for the Bruins. And then Gonzaga, the number 1 team in the country, got their first real test facing Chris Beard and the number 5 Texas Longhorns. And Gonzaga absolutely dominated Texas. They made number 5 look like they were leaps and bounds below where Gonzaga's at. Drew Timme looked every bit the player of the year some journalists think he's going to be, with 37 points. The Bulldogs looked absolutely unstoppable in that game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they look when they have the probably 1 versus 2 matchup in about 8 days here against UCLA. But Trevor, what were the big points that you saw in college basketball this week?
This has nothing to do with the high praise that I already have for UCLA, but when you beat a team like Villanova, that's impressive, right? Like, nonetheless, Villanova was ranked 5th, right? And I just, like, yes, you're going to see these. UCLA was ranked 2, and whether you agreed with me or not, like, deservingly so, they went out against Villanova and proved it. Obviously, Juzang looked amazing, like I absolutely thought, with 25. I thought it was really interesting that they only got a measly, let's make sure I have the stat right here. They only got a measly 2 points and 5 rebounds from Miles Johnson. Transfer that was going to be really important for them. I mentioned defensively, but I also, like, he's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for him to get acclimated, and for him to just play 36 minutes against Villanova and basically barely contribute. I just can't imagine what the strength of this team can look like when they have to play these harder games. And by the way, Josh and I, prior to recording this, maybe 15 minutes before, we're talking and making sure we were on the same page here with the college. And did anyone realize that UCLA and Gonzaga play in like 2 weeks? Actually, less than that, November 23rd on a Tuesday night. Let's just that's my first takeaway. There you go. There's my takeaway. It's UCLA and Gonzaga play. Did not realize that, actually. Genuinely did not understand that. But no, it was an impressive win on the Bruins side, obviously. On the Gonzaga's flip side, like, I'm not as high on the Texas team. I think they have a lot of holes for what they did do at the transfer. I do like Chris Beard a lot. This Texas team, I feel like, is going to need to get it together later in the season. I think they're going to be good, and they're going to be in that top 4 or 5 seed contention. Don't get me wrong, but I think they're going to also be very, very, very reliant on momentum this year. If they can come out of the conference and going into the NCAA tournament with some good momentum, I think they're going to be dangerous. I just think right now they're not going to look as impressive as, say, a Duke or UCLA, or even a Nova who didn't look like they got blown out by any stretch. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of I'm just kind of stuck on the fact that this Gonzaga UCLA matchup's happening. We're going to find out a lot of stuff about the two teams that kind of have weathered the storm there at the top. They've both now been tested against number 4 and number 5 respectively. Nothing really being said about that number 3 Kansas Jayhawk team. I don't know if they have a big test coming at any point soon. They had Michigan State, and it looks like Michigan State was probably the biggest non-conference test for the Jayhawks this season. Shocker. Until January 29th when they play Kentucky. But yeah, we will see a lot about Gonzaga and UCLA, and kind of somebody will submit themselves atop the mountain. I'm excited to see how that goes. Fun week in college basketball. No huge upsets yet, but we'll see what happens.
So not from the first night, obviously, but I am going to say, like, obviously Holmgren, I think, looked like everything we could think he's going to be. Problem is, I think this was only just a sliver of it because Timmy was able to dominate the way he did. Obviously, Holmgren only finished 2 points against Texas. That they didn't need him to do that. But Bates looks really good. I'm just going to address a player that did not play in these 2 games. Imani Bates looks like he's not 17. That's just Bleacher Report, like, for me this week. Like, that's just me on Bleacher Report and being like, I'm catching up on Memphis, who hasn't played anybody, but, like, he looks like just Slim Reaper out there, like, just crossing dudes up and, like, pulling up from, like, 30. I mean, it just, he's doing things that we knew he could do, but, like, the 17 piece, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. I think he's going to be that good. That is crazy how I feel stupid for not picking him for freshman of the year or newcomer, as they now call it. But just
I think that's wild, and make people understand, like, at home. Imani Bates does not turn 18 years old until January. So he is really just this 17-year-old monster. For the Memphis Tigers. Maybe, like, a guy for his play style, Penny Hardaway is really just going to be an exceptional mentor. But yeah, like you said, I've been impressed so far. These are games against NC Central and Tennessee Tech.
Shout out to NC Central. That's awesome.
So we'll see as things go, but Memphis looks good in these matchups. First test for the Memphis Tigers will be November 24th, next Wednesday, when they play the Virginia Tech Hokies. But I think that'll prove to be the first real test in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So
nice. Just quickly, my last 2 things. Obviously, we are talking about the main games here, so I'll give you some thoughts on Gonzaga that I really barely gave you any on prior. Obviously, I mentioned Holmgren and I mentioned Timmy, who just looked like he was the best player in college basketball, like you said. I think this is interesting to note. Like, we know how good Gonzaga is. Let's just let's just be clear. Like, we know, right? We, you and I, we, the country, we, everyone, right? They played 8 players against Texas. Yep. 8 players saw the floor. Texas played all 12 players. So Gonzaga I'm so high on UCLA, I can't even get the team right. Gonzaga, who isn't like, let's be honest, like they're good, but Texas is good too. Like this is not like they played like, Dixie State like they did in the first game. They're 4 players less, and they're 5 spots better than Texas in the ranking. Like that to me, like that's not a rotational thing you see in college sometimes. Like I don't feel like that's common. It's common in the NBA to see that in playoff time. Don't get me wrong. And obviously they will have their best 8 in the tournament. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's impressive this early for them to already be like, this is our best 8. Like just
it's
roll
one
it
of
out.
those, most teams like shrink to their 8 by mid-January.
Mid-January, February, yeah.
It's a little weird Gonzaga's already there. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see. Most coaches are still trying to figure it out. If they really are that far ahead and they don't need to figure it out, they've already figured it out, that might be kind of terrifying. But
my other point was you mentioned Akron, and yes, that was crazy. And then they proceeded to play Kent State, and that game was unbelievable as well. But I did say that an Ohio team was going to beat the best team in Ohio, which I guess so far Ohio State's best team in Ohio ranking wise. But I did say an Ohio team was going to beat another Ohio team this month. I didn't think it was almost going to be Akron. I was obviously bullish on the fact that Xavier was going to take care of business in a couple days. But yeah, that hurts as my in-laws are Ohio State fans, for those that might not know. But it's tough. I hate to see it, but Xavier's the best team in Ohio. And I can't wait to see how that turns out in a couple of days. So shout out to Xavier. I'm still bullish on them being a dark horse. So anything else on college basketball? Any other takeaways, players? I know obviously I brought up Bates. That was kind of the one that was kind of just almost forgotten about. But anything else from you?
no big stuff so far. I think we're at the point where we've seen some fun things, but there's still a million other things to learn. And it's going to be interesting as we get there. But I'm ready I'm locked and loaded. I'm ready for this trivia question.
All right. I'll also give my 30-second takeaway from NC State versus Nebraska. We'll record between now and then, but since we're talking about college, I'll be at the ACC Big Ten Classic in Raleigh. A little high up, but I'll be there nonetheless. Thought it'd be really cool to document that experience for the pod. Josh. Someone this week did something historic, right? Didn't we talk about that?
Steph, yeah.
Like somebody did something. So how fitting, but to talk about, the man of the hour, the man of the day. Sorry, Hawks. But Steph broke an impressive record. And I mentioned like how there's some stats and anomalies, things like that, but he's first on about every 3-point list. So inevitably, we are going to address not the total 3-pointers made, because you have looked at that list at some point in this episode because we talked about it. That's not actually what I prepared. Fun fact. I'm not changing.
Good, because I checked with Trevor before this episode when I basically thought I had deduced that it was going to be total 3-pointers made, whether or not I was allowed to look at the list.
You were close. For the listeners, it is 2-2. Going back into this week, I was able to somehow, some way claw my way back to a 2-2 tie. This year is definitely going to be way more competitive, I can tell. I'm the same guy that took like a 3-1 lead at one point last year, and I felt like I was going to run away with it. So clearly this year's going to be way more competitive, right? Fitting.
I think you were up by like 2 points, and you suddenly thought that you were going to
run away with it. Yeah, it progressively got harder. It got worse. It got harder. So this one, by any stretch of the term, is not hard. I'm giving you plenty of opportunity, to be fair. Steph is also first in most 3-pointers per game all time. Ooh. 3-pointers per game. So it's a different twist, right? It's not total, because total, we went over this pre-recording, but for those who might not know, there's a lot of current players on the total 3-point per game, or not total per game, but totals list. And it's a very shocking list. Homework for the listeners. But Josh gets 30 guesses. Steph, of course, is the first one. So he has 24 total, right? So if he gets all 24 out of the 30, and I promise you this is possible, there's only like maybe a couple where I'm like, yeah, he probably forgot. So 24, unfortunately for you, 24 to get all 3. 15 is what we agreed on prior to this. This is not me throwing out some number to Josh, but I think 15 is entirely possible to get 2 and 7 to get 1.
Question?
Yes, Josh. Absolutely. Go ahead.
2 clarification points. So this is all-time players, not active roster.
This is total, like this is period. They could be active and they also could be retired.
So all-time players, yes.
This is all, yeah, sorry. Yes, to be clear. Sorry. This is all-time. All-time, and to be specific, shout out to our friends at StatMuse. Most 3-pointers per game with a minimum of 400 games played by a player all-time.
Yeah, that was my next question, was the minimum.
Minimum was 400. Shout out to StatMuse for the clarification.
Yeah, my other question was going to be what the minimum was set at. All right, cool. I'm going to jot down like a lot of my ideas, and then I'm going to kind of rapid fire some other ones.
Okay, I'll make sure I'm ready.
So I'm guessing I can't guess. Yeah, you already gave me Steph Curry, so that's not
I did.
one that I can guess it.
I did. That was kind of a tricky one.
So it doesn't count.
Yeah, correct. This is per game.
So this is the top 25 all time.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to start throwing some guesses out here, and tell me if I'm close, right, wrong, way off. We'll see. Klay Thompson. Just gonna go.
Great guess, my
with
friend.
Teammate.
All right, yeah, that's a good guess because Klay is number 4.
There we go. Okay.
Do you want me to tell you? Not that it matters, but do you want me to tell you what their per game is in case it helps?
Sure. I'd love to hear.
Steph, by the way, didn't even mention this for perspective, is 3.7 makes per game. Klay is 2.9.
Okay. Let's go with the second guess and go Ray Allen.
Ray Allen is 8th.
Solid spot. We're still very safely in that top 10. Was that 25?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the player that Trevor forgot and lost a trivia point for, Reggie Miller.
That is a great guess. And unfortunately,
wow,
Reggie Miller is incorrect.
It's a testament to Reggie Miller that he was once the all-time leader, that I think he's still like in that top 5.
Mm-hmm. I believe he's 3rd.
But didn't average that many threes per game. That's a big testament to Reggie Miller.
Sorry, Reggie.
Just going to throw it out there because his name was too high on the all-time list and say LeBron, so that I'm just not kicking myself if I'm wrong.
Unfortunately, you'll be kicking yourself on this one. LeBron, unfortunately, is not correct.
Cool. I can miss 6. I've only missed 2 there.
That is true.
Let's go to, I'm not sure if this guy's retired yet, but probably like best known player, if you think of this guy's only in the NBA to shoot threes, Kyle Korver.
That is a great guess, and I will tell you that is correct. He is 16th.
There we go, Korver.
So that's good logic, though, because you got to think like he was in, and when he was in, he at least took. Let's see. I'll make sure I get that. He at least took 2 per game. There you go. Mm-hmm. There's your answer. Not bad. 4 for 2.
At least
or
made
4
2 per game. That's what you're saying. Yeah, he at least made 2 per game.
4 for 6. Not bad.
We did the take numbers. These would be a lot higher numbers.
Correct.
Let's go with number 4 all time, James Harden.
Where did you say he was in the all time? You said 4.
Mm-hmm.
In this, he is 5th.
There we go. All right, so 4 players down. Only need to get 3 more right.
Which is why I was saying 15 is actually obtainable. 20,
James
what's
Harden.
it called? It's still pretty hard.
Let's go with Harden's counterpart in Brooklyn, Kevin Durant.
Unfortunately, Kevin Durant is not correct. I guess the Slim Reaper just started shooting threes more recently. I don't know. Like, why did Kevin Durant not average more than on this list? That's interesting. No, he unfortunately he's not on this list. All jokes aside, Harden, by the way, to answer what their number was, Harden was 2.8. So almost
high. Paul Pierce.
Unfortunately, Mr. 18-foot jump shots in the Eastern Conference Finals is not correct. Paul Pierce is not correct.
Is this like an all recent players list?
I will tell you, there's a trend here. And I was actually trying to do this while you were writing down for the listeners. I cut out the 3 minutes I gave Josh to like write down as many as he could get out of his head. I did the
Okay,
same
it was
thing.
not there. I spent like a minute.
Maybe whatever it was. I cut it out so you didn't have to sit there. But I was gonna, while doing that, I didn't have a chance to, but I was going to write how many active players there are. If you would like for me to tell you how many active players there are, I will. How many
have I missed so far?
That's what I was going to ask you, actually. Reggie Miller was incorrect. LeBron, Pierce, and there was one other that I believe that I missed, but I just want to make sure. You haven't missed many, to be fair.
Kevin Durant, Reggie Miller,
Durant,
LeBron, Pierce.
Durant, that's it.
So I only have 2 more misses if I want to get all of them correct.
Yeah, gotta go well here. Sorry.
Let's go Damian Lillard. Just go ahead and go recent.
Damian Lillard is correct, and good for you. He was the second of 3 guys. He is third. He is the second you've gotten. Well, Steph, I gave you, but one other guy with 3 left, with 3 total. He has 3. Hopefully that made sense. I was trying to get that out correctly.
Okay.
After getting
I'm having
Damian Lillard,
to kind of abandon my original strategy here.
Yeah, after getting Damian Lillard, I'm also not telling you how many active players there are because I think I kind of gave it away. There's a lot of active players.
Yeah, there is. PG-13 himself, Paul George.
Now, for the listeners, can you explain your logic on Paul George?
He's probably like one of the more phenomenal 3-point shooters I can think of from the last 10 years. So I can imagine he took a lot, probably made a lot.
Well, that logic would do you correct. He is number 6.
Yeah.
With 2.5. 2.5. Nice. Good thinking there. That's the one
Need
that
one more to get a point and take the lead from you.
15 is definitely obtainable, I promise. I'm looking at this list
Yeah.
and I can tell you I'd have gotten 15. All right, I'll help you out for a second, just to be safe. There is only 4 more retired players left. You got one of them. Which was,
Ray Allen.
Ray Allen, yeah. So
is Korver still playing then?
Sorry, I guess you've gotten 2 technically. You got Korver. That's true.
Oh, Kobe.
As much as it pains me to say, unfortunately,
Dang.
Black Mamba himself is not correct.
Come on.
Yeah. You notice in my backdrop, for the listeners that can't see this, my backdrop, he won't be shooting a 3 in any of these photos. He's dunking in every one of these. So, unfortunately, sorry.
How many career games has Trae Young played? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. It's probably.
I know it's
probably
not
close.
400.
Close to it, probably.
He's not at 400, so he doesn't make the list. Oh man. Kyrie Irving. He's played 400.
He barely. No, I'm just kidding. He has played 582 games, and he averaged 2.2.
Yeah.
He is on this list, and he is dead near the middle, so give me a moment to figure out why you're thinking of the next guess. Let me get him his position. He is 9th. I'm sorry. Not 9th. Hold on, I went that backwards. Hold on. He is 14th. So some of mine, I'm realizing that I forgot this was a 25 list, not a 20 list. Some of these placements are off, but not the top guys. All those top guys are correct. Steph's first. Lillard, you got, was 3rd. Clay was 4th. Harden's 5th. George is 6th. Allen is 8th. It was Korver who I got wrong. Kyle Korver was, let's see, after Kyrie. So Kyle Korver was 21st and not 16th. Other than that, it does not matter. So I corrected myself through this point of this episode. Shout out.
Okay, I'm going to take a shot at one of those retired players on the list. My logic behind this player is that I don't really remember how good of a 3-point shooter he was, and he was a great ball handler as a point guard.
Interesting logic.
No, give me a second to get there. But he scored a ton of points. Just an egregious amount through the mid-2000s. Enough to win him 2 MVP awards, so I'm going to say Steve Nash.
Steve Nash has been quoted to say one of his biggest regrets in his career was not to shoot the ball more, or was to shoot the ball more. So unfortunately, for that reason, he is not on this list. He decided too late in his career to try to save his legs and start shooting more. I think Steve Nash could be a top 5 shooter all time. I will go down and say in this, if he had shot way earlier in his career, he was that good at 3-point shooting towards the end. Unfortunately, Steve Nash is not correct. Unfortunately, that also knocks you out from perfect contention. So,
No, I have a chance to miss one more.
oh yeah, sorry, I have 6 unless I'm missing one. I got Kobe, Pierce, LeBron, Reggie, Kevin Durant.
Oh, I forgot I missed
Steve
Kobe.
Nash.
Yeah, that's
So
well. Then that doesn't knock me out. If I miss one more,
true.
then
True.
I'm out.
True, you've got to go literally perfect. So
If
Trivia.
I go 17 for the next 17, I get 3.
I'm going to try my best not to do an opportunity where you could get 25 total guesses or 25 total answers here, because this segment will end up being half of the episode. The other half is Hawks.
This was you did this. Like
Yeah,
this
I
is
know.
what you
I know. I
created.
regret it. I regret it. So let's get the ball rolling on 3-point shooters, which, by the way, recent, like you understand that, you see that. So
Bradley Beal.
great guess. Bradley Beal is 12th.
Woohoo.
Bradley Beal with 2.3 makes per game.
Yeah, I'm just having to wait for it to come to me nowadays. Now, Mike Conley.
It's a great guess. Unfortunately, I believe he started shooting threes as he got into Utah more. I don't know much of his 3-point time in Memphis, but unfortunately, he is not correct.
Well, there goes the 3 points.
I'll be inserting a drum there.
I just got it.
That was a layup. Okay, I'm done. All right, keep going. Here we go.
I get 15 more guesses to get
15.
7.
Oh well, yeah, I guess
7 right because I've already got 8 done.
God, I gave you a lot of guesses, but I think you kind of need them with 15 now. So
15
that's good.
more guesses to get 7 right.
It's not bad. You got to shoot 50%
kind of
from the field.
To Mad Lib them out here.
Yeah, we've talked about some of these guys today too, which is even funnier.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, actually, I look at this now and realize that.
I'm just thinking of who I've talked about today.
Yeah, you specifically have talked about 2 of these guys. I have as
When
well.
I was naming the fun fact players in that list, it probably was. Geez, Kyle Lowry.
I didn't want to trick. That's not a trick, but yeah, Kyle Lowry's not correct.
That's sad. Thanks a lot, Trevor.
Sorry, I didn't mean like literally like from earlier, like that segment specifically, but or that part of it. But that is fun. Kyle Lowry is the only. Kyle Korver is the only Kyle on this list.
All right, 14 guesses to get 7.
Got it. I believe in you. Not that one's not impressive. Like this is still all time technically.
Yeah. Even though it's named 2 retired players total.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Out of 6 total. Just don't even focus on the retired players. Let me just help you. Don't focus on the retired players.
Am I not going to get them?
Oh, you could. I just don't overthink the retired players.
That's a good point.
There's only 2 that I think you should kind of sort of get. There's a couple that I'd be shocked if you got. But yeah, just focus on current. Focus on current. I think it'd help. I am willing to give a hint at some point. Not that I have one prepared, but I am willing to give one at some point soon.
Just thinking of recent great scores, recent MVPs. So I just need to go down these rosters. Who can shoot? Chris Middleton.
It's a good guess, honestly. It's just not correct.
Why do you keep doing this?
Because all these are good guesses. They really are.
Oh my gosh. All right.
I thought this question was actually pretty easy. I really did. I'm not playing when I say that. I feel bad now. No, I don't. I'm hoping you walk away with 1 point here. This is still a competitive trivia segment. Man. Now you're going to give me G League All-Stars next week or something, or G League, whatever you said last year, G League something.
You just had to name 2 of the players that were drafted out of the G League. That's all it took, and you couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's tough. No.
Can you now name 2 players who were drafted from the G League?
No.
Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga.
Oh, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was thinking about the
Good
ones that I already named. I was thinking about the ones I already named. All right. Nonetheless, no more G League players. 3-point shooting focus. Oh, geez.
I feel like there's like. Nah, it's not that guy.
There are multiple 3-point contest winners left. For what that's worth.
This may sound off the wall. We're just going to throw it. Joe Johnson.
That is off the wall, and it is not correct. Shout out to Joe Johnson, though. He was really good.
You're right.
I love how Joe Johnson is the first name you thought of when I said there's 3-point champions on this list, and I don't think he won a 3-point contest.
I think he did.
I'll look that up while you're thinking.
Is it as stupid as just like one of our more recent 3-point champions?
No, Joe Johnson was one of 4 Nets in all time to be selected for the 3-point contest. That is also another hint. One of those 4 Nets is on this list.
Vince Carter.
Unfortunately, Vince Carter is not correct. Did Vince Carter?
Jason Kidd.
Okay, you're just gonna. All right. No, Carter and Kidd are both wrong.
Richard Jefferson.
These are all guesses. You realize how many you need left to get it right?
No,
right?
I'm not going to use the Richard Jefferson one.
I'll give you a freebie. So Carter and Kidd are both wrong. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 wrong. Wait, is it even possible to get to? Hold on.
I have 12 wrong and
You've gotten 1, 2,
8 right. Means I have 10 more guesses.
No,
so yeah,
you have 9 right. You have 9 right.
9 right. Means I have 9 more guesses. Wait, do I have 9? Yeah, I do have 9.
Steph, Lillard, Clay, Harden, George.
9 right. That means I have 9 more guesses, and I just need to get 6. So
it's still possible. You just started. I thought you were just like. I thought that was your white flag moment. I was like, is this the way where Kidd, Carter?
So annoyed.
Brooke Lopez.
I really don't know what other net could be on this list.
I can promise you
it's leave it alone.
Yes, please leave it alone. I can promise you it's not Brooke Lopez.
Oh, but I know which net it is, but I don't want to sound like an idiot for saying it. I'll come back to it at the end.
If you need one, I would go with that guess because it's probably right. Maybe not after the 12 you've drawn so far. I don't know. Oh, geez.
Oh, that bothers me.
I bet.
CJ McCollum.
I was literally, no joke, my next guess was I think there's like 4 Trailblazers on this list. CJ McCollum is correct. He is 9th behind Ray Allen.
Oh, thank the Lord.
CJ McCollum is like the thank the Lord guess. Oh, I love it. What does this 3-point world become where CJ McCollum is your 9th place thank the Lord guess? Oh, God. Oh, this is going to be so much fun to edit.
Oh, Wayne Ellington.
Oh, not right.
Really?
Yeah.
Danny Green.
This is your white towel moment. It has to be.
Is that also not right?
No, that's also not right.
They were guys who just spent years doing nothing but shooting and making threes for teams. Like, what else were they doing in the meantime?
All right, you need how many left? I can't. I'm sick to my stomach laughing. In the nicest way possible.
I need to get 5 more. I have 6 guesses.
All right, I'm going to give you this last hint. You're overthinking it. There are a lot more stars on this list than you think.
I can't even think of any more stars left.
Oh, well, okay, let me tear this down. They're not superstars, but there's guys that in this current NBA to this year
are superstars, but
they are stars.
Are they?
You know, since you need 5 out of 6, there's a Charlotte Hornet on this list.
Current Charlotte Hornet?
I'm not telling you that.
So that's a no.
I'm not telling you that. There is a Charlotte Hornet on this list. No, it's not current.
Yeah, the only one could be Kemba Walker.
Is that your final answer?
No.
I feel like Regis Philbin who wants to be a millionaire. Is that your final answer? Are you sure? The only answer is Kemba Walker and proceeds not to answer Kemba Walker.
Because I just thought of another answer is why.
So it just like, now it's bad. Now it's like, oh no, what do I do?
Yeah. Well, there's two. I thought of another answer of someone who's by far a better 3-point shooter, but I don't know if in his day they shot that many.
Maybe.
Del Curry. That's an answer.
Gotta go 5 for 5. Only one Curry is on this list. I apologize.
Kemba Walker.
Yeah, Kemba Walker is correct.
Okay.
Kemba Walker is.
Thank you for telling me only one Curry is on this list, and now I don't say Steph.
Yeah, right. You shouldn't even be thinking Steph, honestly. To answer your question, all right. So who did you say? I'm not gonna lie, I forgot. Curry. You said Del Curry was incorrect. Gosh, that is so.
Kemba Walker is right. I need to go
Kemba
4 for 4.
Right. Hey, no, it's still possible. To give you perspective, let's see. Kemba was 11th with not that it matters. CJ was 2.3 when I didn't say CJ. Walker was 2.3 as well.
I'm going to throw this in there because it would be a fact you would like and say Devin Booker.
I would love for him to be on this list, and I think he does finish all time in this list and the other one, but not, unfortunately, just yet. Unfortunately, that is a 1 point total for this week, and
I'm not guessing anymore.
I am going to start from 25 and spare you the misery.
Who are the retired players?
Oh, I'm gonna go 25 up.
Okay.
From 25 up, Gilbert Arenas was, and I'll tell you how many the total, because there wasn't a big difference. So this tier I'm fixing to say is all 2 makes per game on average. So Gilbert Arenas, Bojan, not Bogdan, but Bojan Bogdanovic.
Bojan Bogdanovic is on this list.
It's 24th. Yes. Oh, another guy we talked about today, or one of the guys we talked about today, Danilo Gallinari is 23rd. J.R. Smith.
I should have got that one.
Yeah, golfer J.R. Smith. No, this is basketball J.R. Smith. He is next on this list. Kyle Korver, we already mentioned, was 21st. Wesley Matthews, who we previously mentioned on this podcast.
Wasn't going to do myself in with that.
Ryan Anderson was the retired player that I was not shocked by, but was a retired player. J.R. Smith was another one. Gilbert Arenas was one of them, since you were asking. Zach LaVine making it on this list with one of the lowest. I believe he is the second lowest. No, he is the third lowest total games played on this list at 424 for perspective. This one hurt my feelings. I'm not gonna lie to you. JJ Redick hurt. I know it's the Carolina Duke thing. I know it's the,
I thought about it when I was thinking of Korver, and then I was like, nah.
Yeah.
And I never came back around to it, and I should have come back around.
Because you came around to Steve Nash, Kevin Durant, Reggie Miller, and others.
You said stars. You literally told me stars on the list. I wouldn't call JJ Redick a star. He was
I may have misled you on a couple of those stars, but you did. There's a couple I'll get to. The JJ Redick one hurt. Fun fact: JJ Redick only missed the playoffs once his entire 13-year career.
Last season.
For the fun fact, yeah. Joe Harris. Was that the net you were going to get?
I didn't want to look stupid from saying it.
I knew it too. For you, Tim Hardaway Jr. is on this list.
What? Tim Hardaway Jr.
Fun fact: Joe Harris is the second least amount of played games. Second, Joe Harris.
Hardaway
414. Kyrie Irving, you already got. Peja Stojakovic. All time, but 3-point shooter wise, great. I believe he is also top 25 on the other list as well. Bradley Beal, we're starting to get into the top here. Bradley Beal was 12th. You got Kimbo at 11th. Robert Covington at 10th.
What?
Yeah, that's the one I was like, nah. There's
what outrageous list did you just give me?
One where Robert Covington cracked the top 10 all time.
Does he shoot threes now?
Yeah, 3-and-D. He's a 3-and-D guy. Anyway, we'll move on. CJ McCollum, you got it 9th. Ray Allen at 8th. Eric Gordon. That one's tough. Eric Gordon's good. Paul George, James Harden, Clay, Damian Lillard, And at the number 2 spot, the one that I think is hilarious, actually, because I did not realize this until about 30 seconds ago. With 400 career games played. With exactly 400.
Please tell me it's not.
With 3 makes per game on average. Do you want to guess, just for the fun?
400 as of if it's Trey
yesterday.
Young, lose,
as of yesterday.
Lose my mind.
No, I absolutely wish it was Trey Young. I ended the segment 3 minutes ago.
Okay, who is it?
Buddy Hield.
Oh, wow.
Buddy Hield.
Buddy.
What didn't Buddy Hield burn me? Wasn't he in the top 5 in some category? Not that. Oh, bench scoring. Buddy Hield was in the bench scoring one too.
I eventually got that one on the bench scoring.
Oh,
Did not.
That's tough. What a week.
Career games played. Oh my word.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until like 30 seconds ago. That was the stat I was talking about. Oh, dude, what a question that I genuinely thought was easier than this.
I still don't see what stars there were on there that I missed quite.
The stars. So you didn't really miss many stars. Like I thought.
Like who are you calling a star? Eric Gordon?
I think you pretty much hit them all. Honestly, I think you got to that point. I said it before you got Kemba and Beal, I believe, and then
not
Zach
before
LaVine.
Beal, before I got Kemba.
Zach LaVine.
And Zach LaVine, I've been honest.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. There was a lot of quality role players either today and prior. So, all right, now that this episode is half of a trivia episode, anything else before we get out of here?
3-2 lead.
Hey, no lead is safe this year. We know that now, clearly.
So who are we going to have do the finale?
We'll figure it out. I don't even know. You don't know. I mean, it'll be a spoiler or a shocker to everybody. I don't know. We'll figure something out. We'll try our best to get somebody
feedback on our website and give us a 5-star review, comment feedback, and pitch to us why you should be the one to deliver the season-ending trivia quiz. Only if you give us a 5-star review, and we'll consider you for doing it.
Please, because someone somehow gave us a 1 and didn't tell us why. And also,
that 1-star review with no comment. Yeah, that really hurt that our rating's now 4.9. Thanks, bud.
No, we still appreciate all the support on all of it. Like Josh said, the website. Thank you for all the support on that. We see everybody that's been on it. Twitter at 2Pointers. Can't believe it's been this long since I've made a plug. Let's see if I don't mess this up. At 2Pointers on Twitter, Facebook.com/the 2Pointers podcast, and TikTok at the 2Pointers podcast. I don't think I messed up. Who cares? That's been a fun episode of the 2Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor.
I'm Josh. And we will 3 you soon.